Freezing in competitions is absolutely brutal. You work your ass off for weeks in training, but the second the match starts, you just can't seem to pull the trigger. I'm a mental performance coach for BJJ athletes like yourself, and I've helped everyone from new white belts to black belt world champions overcome this very problem. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 tips that will stop you from freezing up so you can actually perform in competitions like you do in practice. Before we get going here, let's talk about why you might be freezing in competitions in the first place. So if you're one of these athletes that are just hyper-focused on winning, submitting the opponent, looking through the bracket, game planning for your opponents, you're focusing on all the wrong things. All of these things are outside of your control, right? And this makes the stakes of the competition just skyrocket. And when you focus on things outside of your control, that's where anxiety lives, right? Anxiety feeds off things that you cannot directly control, right? You can't control if you win because the other person gets a say, right? You can't control if you submit them. You can't control, how the bracket plays out. If there's a delay in the competition, these are all things outside of your control. Instead, I want you to focus on things that are 100% in your control. And that is exactly what I'm going to be showing you in this video through these 3 mental performance tips. And the reason why these tips work is it takes the things that you can control and puts them in forefront of your mind, and you can let go of the things that you can't control as quickly as possible so you can perform at your best when it matters the most. Also, if you want to get my full mental training framework designed specifically for BJJ athletes just like yourself, you can check that in the description below. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is you need to start lowering the stakes of the competition. This is a very simple tool to start to shift your perspective. I've spoken to and coached hundreds of BJJ athletes, and most athletes prefer low pressure scenarios, as close to a training room environment as you possibly can. There's a handful of athletes, like sort of Owen Joneses and Jasmine Roaches, that love a high pressure situation that helps them perform better. But I would say 9 out of 10 athletes prefer lowering the stakes. Most athletes don't do well with special. They do very well with important. So what's the difference? So for example, when Jasmine is getting ready for ADCC Worlds, making her debut, we're doing our best not to put that in a special occasion category, right? This is just another tournament amongst all the other tournaments she's done, and that's the focus at all times. And this helps her bring the stakes down and help her perform better. So rather than having this I have to win mentality, I want to focus on I want to win. And there's a big difference. When you go in there with a must win mentality, you start to avoid making mistakes. You clam up, you tighten up, you play not to lose rather than competing with freedom and actually bringing all your skills onto the competition mats. So next time when you start feeling nervous before the match, just remind yourself that, this is not a must-win competition. You choose to be here, you want to be here, there's gonna be another competition. Even if it is a world championship level tournament, there's gonna be a next one and a next one. Nothing's at stake. You're not gonna die, right, if you lose this match. So lowering those stakes can be very, very helpful, unless you're one of the athletes, obviously, that prefer the pressure. That's when we want to increase the stakes. But for most of you, lowering the stakes is the name of the game, is exactly what you want to be doing. Okay, so let me share a quick story with you. So Saul was one of my clients I've been working with many years. And when he first came to me, he was bringing about 50% of his ability onto the competition mats. So we focus very, very heavily on, lowering the stakes, putting this process over outcome mentality into play every single time he stepped on the competition mats. Okay, so fast forward now a couple of years. Now he's performing better in competition than he does in practice. And that has been a remarkable journey. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is sometimes you can feel hopeless. Being in the position that you are, that, you're going from competition to competition and you're just having these up and down performances, inconsistent performances, but that doesn't need to be the case, right? If you start to invest in your mental training, implement these tips, especially tip number 3 that I'm gonna be sharing is one of Saul's favorites, so hang in for that. But if you implement these tips, you're gonna start seeing results. The second thing I want you to do is to deal with the what if thoughts that you have on competition day. So what we want to do is take those negative and intrusive thoughts that you have, running in the back of your mind and put them front and center and start to tackle them head on. So what I want you to do is grab a pen and paper and write down all the negative thoughts that you have on competition day and put those into a what if format. This could be, what if I lose? What if I get submitted? What if my coach is disappointed in my performance? And write everything down that you can think of in a what if format. Once you got those down, I want you to go on the other side of the paper and start writing down the exact opposite. So these would be, what if I win? What if I submit my opponent? What if I win gold? What if I have the performance of a lifetime? What if my coach is proud of my performance and how I competed? I know both of these things are still outside of your control, but it's still a way more positive way of thinking about your performance and might just fill you with a lot of confidence stepping on the competition mats. And if you really, really struggle with this, I've actually got a full workshop inside my platform and you can check that out in the description below. This is where I run through the 5 steps that is gonna help you decatastrophize their competition day and then help you step with confidence on the competition mats. The third tip, and maybe the most important tip, is to focus on what you can control. This is a way to anchor your focus into things that are in your control and then let go of the things that you can't control as quick as you can. And if you get really, really good at this, you're gonna be absolutely unstoppable. And you're gonna be pulling the trigger and competing at your best literally every single time you step on the mats. Like I said earlier, anxiety lives on the things outside of your direct control. This is a way to pull that focus very, very quickly into things that you can control. So this is where you would focus on what I call the controllables. Your body language, your effort, and your competitiveness. This is a super quick activity that you can just remind yourself in the bullpen when you're going in, about to make the walk. Just remind yourself, I can control my body language, I can control my effort, I can control how hard I compete. That's it. And if you want to start practicing this in your training, take an open mat, take a competition class, and worry a little bit less about the technique and start to focus more on, how was your body language in that round? Did you give full effort? Did you compete as hard as you possibly can? And do that multiple times a week, and then this can become like second nature when you step on the competition mats. But it's important that you do bring that intensity in your training rounds, especially when you're getting ready for competition. Multiple times a week, you're having hard rounds, you can focus a little bit less on the technique and focus more on the controllables and focus on competing with the right intensity. And then after the training session, take a pen and paper and score yourself from 0 to 10. Try and avoid 7. 7 is a really easy number to give. So give yourself, a score. And if you're scoring consistently above 8, 9s, then you're in a good place. And that gives you a benchmark how you want to compete in competitions. I'm very, very confident that if you implement these 3 tips, it's gonna take you a step closer for you to bring your practice game to competition. And if you want to take even more steps to take your practice game to competition, check out this video here where I'm going to be talking with Rene Souza and answering the most common questions that BJJ competitors